Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this seventh seminar of in our seminar webinar series on environment and climate change, past, present, and future challenges. And today we have Dr. Asif Javed as our honored speaker, and he will be delivering his talk on climate change and water scarcity. Dr. Asif Javed is assistant professor at Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences, Hazara University. Dr. Asif Javed has been recognized as an environmental expert scientist in Pakistan. Dr. Asif holds PhD degree in environmental sciences from Quaid-e-Azam University and has more than 18 years of work experience with 5 years field experience and 13 years academic research experience. He also has experience in working in international research projects funded by United States Agency for International Development, USAID, United States National Environmental and Health Institute, United States National Science Foundation, at Columbia University, New York, USA. At present, Dr. Asif Javed is serving as Assistant Professor, Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences, Faculty of Natural and Computer Sciences, Hazara University, Mansehra, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Dr. Asif published 26 research articles with 14 research papers published in international peer-review journals and with the impact factor recognized by HEC in W and W category. 5 research papers published in national peer review journals recognized by HEC in X and Y category. 4 research papers published in refereed international conference proceedings. 3 research papers published in other international journals and a book. Dr. Asif Javed is also a fellow member of Geological Society of America and also a member of Society of Economic Geologists and Mineral Technologists, SEGMITE. With this, I welcome Dr. Asif Javed for this informative talk and timely presentation in this seminar series. Please welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Saad, for a detailed introduction, and I welcome all of you to this seminar. Just let me know my voice is clear and loud to all of you. Can anybody please confirm first? Dr. Saad, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear in the audio.
Okay, fine, good. So today I'm going to talk about the climate change and water scarcity. I have tried to make the presentation as much simple as I can. So looking at the audience, there I assume there will be a variety of different audience, including students and faculty and other things. So I have tried to make it as simple as I can. Climate change is nowadays is a buzzword, and water scarcity is also very important, particularly for this region. Before starting the slides, uh, let me explain why water is important in terms of climate change. Water is the most important victim that is likely to be affected by the effect of climate change. And for Pakistani scenarios, you may be aware of the fact that Pakistan has been consistently ranked among top 10th vulnerable country that is likely to be affected by the effect of climate change, mainly because of two reasons. We have large reserves of ice or snow up in the Himalayas, and our 40% population directly depends upon the meltwater that is coming from those Himalayas. Secondly, we have a large coastline in Sindh and Balochistan, and with the melting of glaciers, our land-based ice into the sea, our sea level rise, and also the seawater intrude. So this was the significance of climate change and water scarcity for Pakistan. That's why I chooses this topic. So Let's start from very basics. What we are going to discuss: environment, climate change impacts on water, and Pakistani situations. This is the basic. I'll not take too much time. You probably have a clear idea about what environment is, but just to refresh or rephrase, the circumstances or conditions that surrounds an organism or a group of organisms, that is called environment, or the complex of social or cultural conditions that affect an individual or community. What is climate change basically? You see this figure, this is a very widely publicized figure, and this shows the greenhouse effect. Basically, the atmosphere is the life-giving blanket for us. If we don't have atmosphere is basically the composition of gases above the surface. And this is the life-giving blanket. If we don't have atmosphere, so the earth temperature would have been minus 18 degrees Celsius and life would have not been possible on this planet earth. So this is a nature's, life-giving blanket for us. But this life-giving blanket is because of the greenhouse gases, that is called positive forcing gases, that trap or absorb the outgoing infrared radiations that has been released from the earth after receiving the incoming radiations from in a different format and releasing in infrared radiation. They were trapped by those greenhouse gases, which results in increase of temperature, and which is somehow good, and which make this atmosphere or this life livable for us. But excess of everything is bad. Once we have more carbon dioxide, we have more greenhouse gases, so we have more temperature, and that has some serious repercussions on our daily life. So climate change is a change in statistical distribution of weather over periods of time that range from decades to millions of years. It can be a change in the average weather or the change in the distribution of weather events around an average, for example, greater or fewer extreme weather events. Unprecedented changes in climate basically is known as climate change. Climate change may be limited to specific region or may occur across the whole earth. Skepticism is now receding. We know that greenhouse gas concentration are increasing, as I mentioned earlier. Greenhouse gases affect the climate system. World average temperature has risen relatively fast over the past 30 years. Sea level rise is gradually accelerating. Many temperature sensitive system oblique processes have changed over the past 2 decades. But I will just stop here and just say that sea level rise because of two reasons. First, with the temperature increase, there is slight expansion, so sea level rise little bit. But when we have ice that fall into the sea, that has the sea level rise dramatically or more. And particularly, there are two types of ice. One is land-based ice and second one is sea-based ice. When sea-based ice melts into the sea, sea levels rise slightly. But when the land-based ice melts and goes into the sea levels rise dramatically. So you can just imagine, to clarify your concept, how sensitive our region is. All the ice we have is here in Pakistan is the sea based, or in south is sorry is land based ice in all entire South Asian region. In terms of climate change, there was assumption before. Earth is so big with unlimited resources, and humans don't have any impacts on Earth's environment. Natural resources are produced by nature, and we have all rights to use them the way we want. That assumption initially was true for the older times for, for the reasons. Number one, population size and density were low. Population were low, so human does not have a large impact on Earth resources. And secondly, mostly dependence on the human muscle power and simple tools, which means human could only degrade or transform small piece of a land. But This assumption is not true for the new time, this time. Then technological advancements came in somewhere around 250 or 275 years ago. So technological advancements are basically blessings. Due to technological advancement, we have mass production of many useful and affordable products. Sharp increase in agriculture productivity. Efficient means of transportation. Lower infant mortality and long life expectancy. Greater average income. Rapid access to the information. You see if you look at the population, before technological advancement, the human population was less than 2 billion. In all of the human history, population have never crossed 2 billion mark. But in less than 300 years, the population has crossed 7 billion mark. And we don't know where it will goes in future just because of lower infant mortality rate and long life expectancy, sharp increase in agriculture productivity. So these are the factors which actually contributed to the population increase, but again with the same earth and same resources. But remember, our technologies are often bigger than us. It enhanced our capabilities to transform the earth entirely. So what we say is technological advancements are good and blessings. They have provided, they have given us so many benefits. But remember, technological advancement should not be at the cost of environmental degradation as we observe nowadays. So here is a very useful equations. You can see old habits plus old technology. We have predictable consequences. So old habits with new technology, we will have highly altered consequences. Let's take an example of war. If humans have a nature of fighting with each other, so to fight with each other using spears and guns is something. But when new technology came in and we start fighting with new technology, so you can say the consequences are far beyond our expectations. Same is the case for deforestation. In the older times when population was low and people hardly used their muscle power to cut down the trees. So how much forest they could degrade at that time? It would have very, very limited or highly negligible impact on the environment. But if you have a habit of cutting the trees with new technology, so you can clear the entire patch of forest within an hour, something like that, so which has some impacts on that. So these are the examples. So we means with the new technology we have to change our habits. So these are the problems due to unplanned technological advancements or ugly development, rather I would say. Climate change, air pollution, ozone depletion, deforestation, land degradation, water degradation, waste generation, and population growth. So climate change affects water resources, agriculture, health, forest, coastal areas, species and natural systems. So which means climate change is basically affecting each and every segment of our society. And for Pakistan, this is very important. We have rise in temperature, clouds move away, less rainfall, we have more melting here, we have more water as a runoff in the rivers and streams, and ultimately it can cause flooding all the way, as we have seen the massive floods in the monsoon, and ultimately it goes to the sea and sea level rise. This is the very best fit scenario for the country like Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, because here 40% of our population directly depends from the meltwater that is coming from these glaciers. And so when these glaciers will be gone, so where will we go to tap water? So these are the few pictures of drought conditions internationally in Africa. These are the impacts real time. Okay, so what climate change does is altering the global water cycle. Water integrates terrestrial, aquatic, and atmospheric interactions and impacts. Population growth and climate change are increasing water-related risks to human and ecosystem health. Result is storms, floods, drought, and desertification of lands are intensifying. Climate change basically intensifies all the natural processes. So global water security, fresh water availability per capita is decreasing all over the world because water is in a cycling form. Once we say we have water shortages, it means the water which is accessible to us, which is available to us, and which is less than 1% of the total water. Like for example, 97% of our water is in the oceans. 2% of our water is in the ice caps and glaciers, and some of the water is in the atmosphere. So the water which we can use, for example, is the water of streams and groundwater, and plants can use only soil water. And in case of stream water, in case of river, two-third is not reliable. For example, and one-third is only reliable, which is used by the human. For example, Amazon River is passing far away from the population, so people cannot go there and tap the water from that river. So only when we say water scarcity or water shortages, so we mean to say that the water that is available to us is decreasing, and what amount of water in ocean is increasing, maybe something like that. So increasing risk of slow onset disasters such as water scarcity, droughts, and famine due to climate change and mismanagement. Promoting water use efficiency, water recycling, and rainwater harvesting is becoming increasingly important in the years to come. Groundwater is another important aspect, comprises large volume than surface water, and is increasingly important for water security in many regions. Many aquifers are threatened by unsustainable abstraction levels, pollution, saltwater intrusion, need for more comprehensive and integrated monitoring and modifying to support good management. Water use and efficiency. Agriculture is the predominant user of water, 7% globally, but in Pakistan it is more than 80% the water that is used for irrigation purposes. Water for cooling and public water supply is also important uses. Water withdrawals are increasing in most regions with increased reliance on groundwater resources. Example is the Pakistan also. Now access to water, which is the basic right of every human. 1.5 billion people gained access to basic drinking water from surface from 2000 to 2015, which is a good news. But women still spend 16 million hours per day collecting water in 25 sub-Saharan countries. So that needs to be improved. Climate change actually amplifies risks we already face, as I mentioned, and have faced for many years. Examples are the drought, flood, water supply shortages and distribution, poor water quality, disrupted watershed processes, and so on. Climate change increases the risk, problems, and stakes. Every time when I go to the, some media channel, I mention them. I'm very explicit in saying that we are facing the consequences of the ugly development of the West because they have done the emission, the greenhouse gases emission. Still, they are doing, like for example, initially US was the big emitter of greenhouse gases. Now China has taken a lead in that case. And Pakistan's contribution in the greenhouse gases emissions is less than 1%. But despite of that less, contribution of greenhouse gases, Pakistan is at the front foot of facing the consequences, is the most vulnerable country. So when people are talking about aid or something like that, I always mention that we don't need aid, we need compensation of the wrongdoing of the West. Now, recently, as we faced the floods, the massive floods. So do we need compensation only for the floods, or do we need compensation for the effects of climate change? If we need compensation for the climate change, then we also look for the drought, we also look for water supply shortages and distribution and all those things. But if we are just asking for a flood, something like that, then floods will be over after a month or so. There will be a lot of money and the issue will be subsided. But if we need to talk about climate change, and we need to keep the issue and these issues alive in front of international community, so that they have the realization that this country or this part of the region, this part of the world is badly suffering because of the climate change. So what are the impacts actually? Less snow, more rain, increased winter flooding, less snowpack, earlier snow melt, lower summer stream flows, increased stream and lake temperature, increased risk to aquatic system and fish species, longer warmer growing season, increased and decreased forest growth and ecosystem productivity, warming surface water, intense drought, longer and more severe fire seasons, increased insect and disease. What is the Pakistan scenario? We have an Indus Basin basically. This is a large watershed. An area of Indus Basin is 114 million hectare, and that is shared by the 4 countries. The Indus River and its 5 tributaries are shared with India. The basins include 44 million hectare of world highest mountainous catchments comprising Himalaya, Karakoram and Hindu Kush. It has a frozen water reserves outside the polar. It feeds the world's largest contiguous irrigation system called Indus Basin Irrigation System. In 1947, the subcontinent divided into India and Pakistan, but boundary demarcated without any consideration of headwaters. For example, Ferozpur and Madhpur headworks went under Indian control, cutting supplies to canals, Apalbari and Dipalpur Canal having 90% command area in Pakistan. The command irrigated area 0.69 million hectare of Pakistan came under severe threat. World Bank mediated, and after protracted negotiation, Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960. So Indus Water Treaty, silent features of the Indus Water Treaty are: India secured all rights of Eastern River, Ravi, Beas, Sutlej. Pakistan got full use of the Western rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. So we have 3 rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. India was allowed to run of the river hydel plants on Western rivers subject to some technical conditions. For diverting water from Western to Eastern rivers, Pakistan was to start mega project called Indus Basin Replacement Works, then cost rupees 124 billion at that time, and Mangla and Tarbela Dam was developed as a result of, diverting water. But the important thing is, you see the eastern rivers, they are with India, but these rivers come to the Pakistan. You can see the Sutlej River in Pakistan. You can see the Ravi River in Pakistan. Ravi is no more a river. We have very less water in that river. Result is increased concentration of geogenic and anthropogenic contaminants in the floodplain of Ravi River because of less water. And same is the case in Sutlej. Whereas on the other hand, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, they have a greater flowing water in that. So we have less contaminant over there. Our contaminants are diluted in the floodplains. So what are the quantitative issues of water? Shortage of water, inadequate storage facility, sedimentation in storage reservoirs, 0.2 million acre feet per year, low system efficiency, less than 12%. I'll talk on that a little bit more. Low productivity per unit of water. Water productivity of rice, for example, 0.45 kilogram per meter cube is 55% below the average value of rice in Asia, 1 kilogram per meter cube. In other words, in the rest of the Asia, with 1 meter cube of water, they grow 1 kg of rice. But in Pakistan, we can, with 1 meter cube of water, we can grow only less than half a kg of rice. So we are using more water to grow the 1 kg of rice. Similarly, water productivity of wheat, 0.7 kilogram per meter cube, is 24% less than the world, 1 kilogram per meter cube. Increased water requirements, agriculture, domestic, industrial. Inequity in water distribution, mining of groundwater resources. I was talking to one of the Canadian channel, and there was a program on groundwater security and climate change, things like that. So I clearly mentioned that if we are growing our rice with the groundwater, so we are actually not selling our rice, not exporting our rice. We are actually selling our water, because water is becoming the more precious commodity than rice or any other food item. So here is the supply and demand scenario of Pakistan. Population has increased, per capita availability of water is continuously decreasing, and Pakistan has now been has been clearly declared as a water scarce country. We have less water. What are the qualitative issues of water in Pakistan? Pollution of surface water, sewerage, industrial. Pollution of groundwater, agriculture, industrial. Pumping of sodic water, salt water upcoming and seawater intrusion. Disposal of drainage effluent 10 million acre feet, soil salinity. All these qualitative and quantitative issues is being exaggerated by the climate change. We have less water in the rivers. Rivers are becoming dry, and we have the massive flood right now, and which will be followed by the severe type of drought conditions in the country. So we are at the front foot of facing all these consequences, the result of climate change. Measures to overcome water shortage. Increase in surface water storage. As I mentioned, we are unlucky nation. We have only two large dams, Mangla and Tarbela. So we didn't have any other water storage structure. Small divergent structure we may have in the form of barrages or but not mega structure. Improved management of the available water resources, water conservation, rainwater harvesting, particularly in hilly areas, groundwater recharge, resource assessment and management. Management of available water resources. Improving conveyance and application efficiencies. Our application and conveyance efficiency is very low. Almost 26% our water is lost in the conveyance, and the same is lost, more than 30% is lost during the application process. Canal and water course lining is a very good solution to conserve the water. Improving farm layout, leveling of fields, using high efficiency irrigation systems such as sprinkler and drip irrigation system. The efficiency of flooded irrigation system is like 40%, so means we apply more than 60% water excess than the crop water requirement when we are using the flooded irrigation system. And the efficiency of sprinkler irrigation system is like 75%, which is good. And the efficiency of drip irrigation system is you can say like 90 to 95%. I personally have used sprinkler irrigation system to irrigate the rice crop in the Punjab area. And despite yield was not affected, rather the concentration of contaminants was also decreased using the sprinkler irrigation system. Using saline water in conjunction with canal water or independently with salt tolerant crops. Adopting proper irrigation schedule. These all are our adaptation measures to the climate change. If we don't do that, we will run out of water resources and we will cry for water. As I mentioned, climate adapt. All actions that protect and restore water and watersheds are climate adaptive. There are two basically set of policies to cope the problem of climate change. Number one is mitigation. Mitigation involves reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases, which is good. This is one way to mitigate, but it is a long time, and uh, definitely the technically advanced country will put more focus on that. And second thing is we need to adapt ourselves. We need to, if water is becoming the victim, so we need to, conserve water. We need to secure water. We need to decrease our demand for water. So the good news is we have knowledge now to understand and adapt. For example, we understand flooding, coastal erosion, how to identify vulnerable land and people so we can prevent ourselves. This is the slide. You can see the small dot in the galaxies. Everything that has ever happened in all of the human history, all the tragedies, tribes, wars, famines, major advancement, it's our only hope, and that is what is at stake, our Earth. Our ability to live on planet Earth is at stake. So we need to be more focused and concerned about that. There is no use of building a fine house if we don't have a tolerable Earth to put it on. I believe climate change is a moral issue. It is highly unethical. It is highly unethical if we destroy life-giving blanket for our future generation. The Indian economist Amrita Sen says who we are to decide on behalf of future generation. So he was awarded Nobel Prize in Economics in 1998 due to his book Development with Freedom. And you must watch. This is a very good documentary of Al Gore and Inconvenient Truth. So that was it. If you have any questions or queries or discussion, now I will open the forum for the discussion, question and queries. You can ask any type of question, even beyond that presentation, you're also welcome. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam. Ji.
Sir, Abid Server from Agriculture Department, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Ji.
Sir, my question is about water requirement for a specific crop, as you mentioned. So my question is there any way to calculate and estimate the crop water requirement for specific crop of specific area? Is there any way to calculate that crop requirement, crop water requirement?
Yes, there are different methods. Like, for example, there are some empirical equations in which you can calculate the crop water requirement for different crops. There are crop coefficients. There are methods for that. Some empirical, equation. FAO has established some manuals for that. For example, for instance, I can, like the crop water requirement of rice is around 1600 millimeter, and that of wheat is something around 500 millimeter. So rice require more, water compared to the. No, sorry. So that's not the water requirement. Actually, for irrigating the rice, we use 1600 mm of water, and for growing the wheat, we use 550 millimeter of water. So it depends. There is a crop water requirement first, then you have a irrigation requirement. So I don't go into the detail. Like, for example, you need to calculate the evapotranspiration, and then you need to subtract, the available water or irrigation water requirement. Then you calculate the irrigation water requirement, things like that. There are equations, there are details on that. So you can measure that. In the West, particularly irrigation, there are two types of irrigation systems in the world. One is supply-based system, and the second one is demand-based system. So here in Pakistan, we have a supply-based system. We don't have a demand-based system. In the West, in the UK, in the US, they have a demand-based system. They calculate the demand of a crop and then apply water according to the crop water requirement of that crop. But in Pakistan, we have a Wara Bandi system. Wara is the word which you can say is a Punjabi word. Wara mean bari. So it's everyone has its own turn to irrigate their crop. So which results in the lot of water wastages in our irrigation systems. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, from the online participants, if you have any question, you can ask. Yes, Shazia Gulzar.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर शाजिया गुलजार soil and water conservation. Thank you sir for very informative presentation. Here is a question is sir, you have mentioned that we have to use saline water. To my understanding, I think this is desalination process. So this is expensive. Would you explain this to us?
No. Saline water, Shazia, I mean saline water only to the salt tolerant crops. There are certain crops which can tolerate the salt concentration. So we cannot go for desalination or thing like that. We can use, for example, in conjunction with the good water quality, we can use some salt water also, only to a salt tolerant crop. Otherwise, definitely you are very right. Desalination is very expensive process, and we could hardly manage that in our systems particularly. So this is for only salt tolerant crops if we have, like for example, so that we can utilize some.
Okay, sir, can you tell us salt tolerant crops?
There are different, like for example, you can say eucalyptus, and I don't remember many of them, but there must be
Yes.
some. We need to
That's why
look at we
eucalyptus
need to
was
look
in
for that.
my mind. Acha, okay. Thank you, sir.
Online participants, if they have any question, we still have time. Or if they don't have right now, we can go to the participants here in the auditorium. If they have any question, they can raise the hand. Well, if nobody has question, I do have a question, or I would like Dr. Asif to comment on it. Like Dr. Asif, you were showing a lot of data, making your claim of water scarcity. This shows that there is a lot of work being done on this aspect, and that is why we have such amount of data. The question I wanted to ask, is there any, do you know of any measures that are taken from the government side or from the ministry or on the society level that that is looking into solving this issue? Because like if we are looking to our situation, housing, in agriculture, we are still using at the same pace or maybe more with the passage of time, the groundwater that we used to use like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that trend has been increasing with the passage of time. So don't you think that that will have an exponential effect on this water scarcity in future? Or do you know any step that has been taken in this regard?
Yes, Dr. Saad, very interesting comment, rather very interesting question. Yes, I would say yes. In the President Musharraf government, they have, because first you need to understand, agriculture is the major user of water in Pakistan, like 85%, or even in some reports, more than 85% water has been used for irrigation purpose in Pakistan. So the government has taken a very good steps during the President Musharraf government. They have started a project that is called National Program for Improvement and Lining of Water Courses in all over the Pakistan, in KP, in Balochistan, in Sindh and Punjab, Gilgit-Baltistan, and during that project they have their main objective was the lining of water courses to conserve water, to make some small storage tanks, and later on to install some sprinkler and drip irrigation system. And obviously that was the government priority. But with the passage of time, the priorities have been changed. But now with the recent development of in the present government, the previous government of Prime Minister Imran Khan, they have taken a good initiative of like a billion tree tsunami, which will also contribute towards the solving the water scarcity problem, because the trees are the trees root or root zone conserve massive amount of water, and which will result massive evapotranspiration, and we have more evapotranspiration, we have more rainfall, and we have more water underground. So that was also a measure, I would say. But yes, on the other side, if you're talking about large dams or small dams, yes, I say I'm really sorry about that. Government has not taken any serious step towards conserving water in the last 10 to 15 years, and as a result, you see we have massive floods almost every year. Intensity varies from year to year, but we have floods every year almost, you can see. And this year we have devastation all over the country just because we don't have any structure to stop that water and conserve that water for the future. So now it's the right time that we should go for adaptation side, and government is concerned about media all the time. They are now discussing these issues in a very effective way, not only Pakistani media, rather international media. Recently I went to the United States in the GSA conference, so everybody was asking me that we are sorry about the flood situation. So entire world, entire community is now mobilized towards all those things. So I think something better will come out for water conservation, and we will have very good projects in future. Inshallah, I hope so. But that is very important.
One thing is that conducting such project and initiative from the government, like you mentioned, the drip irrigation system, and the other one, billion trees, that is one thing. But do you think it is possible to overcome all these issues without legislation? Because if you start billion tree tsunami and you do not have, and the drip irrigation system, you put money in there, but you do not have any legislation for stopping the pumping water, the tubers, the tubers that are in the housing societies, in individual houses. Don't you think there will be a requirement for legislation as well?
Obviously,
or is there any legislation available?
That's the top most like requirement. If you don't have legislation or things like that, and you are unable to enforce the things, so definitely all the money will be wasted out. For example, if you you grow tree, and if there's those trees were cut down, so there is no use of planting those trees in the area. And similarly, if you're making a structure for conservation structure, and you are trying to stop the use of groundwater, or introducing the good quality water into the system for the benefit of the community, but if the people start abstracting water, so definitely these measures will be less fruitful, rather not effective, I would say. So definitely legislation is more important thing. That's the first and foremost thing to do that. And we need to fix the priorities first. What is our priority? So now, due to climate change and all these things, these issues are now become, it should be on the top priority for government of Pakistan, I would rather say.
I think we have a question from online participants. Yes, you can ask.
Dr. Saab, let me comment one thing. The discussion is very fruitful. So, certainly about the water conservation projects of the government. So let me comment on this. Okay, in 2018, the government started Prime Minister Agriculture Emergency Program, in which water conservation in Barani areas of Pakistan. It was a huge project started by the federal government, at that time, and the share was also given to the provinces. And that PSDP project, the Punjab government having 28 billions of the water conservation and water conservation project in Barani areas, and our Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government have the approved cost about 14 billion of the PSDP project. And there are many activities like water pond, we have check dams, water reservoirs, stream bank stabilization, and same like for the groundwater recharge. Same for the AIP when the merged districts, the FATA, ex-FATA were merged with the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So government started for a project for groundwater recharge facilities. Also, it's a 14 billion project with the share of 60% with federal government and 40% with the provincial government. So it started, and also planning the conservation department, the water, soil and water conservation department, agriculture department working on that, and they're working on these projects were started by the Imran Khan government back in 2018.
So yes, these are the good initiative, and thanks for the this useful information. And that all is needed, and that is basically the answer to the climate change, I would rather say. This is the right time to do all these activities. Thank you, Raksa, for your information, for your useful comment, rather, I would say.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Any other comment from the online participants or physical participants here? Yes.
And
Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much for the useful talk. What do you think? What should we include in in terms about water security, water shortage in our national climate change policy? Like, what do you think? What could be the major points which should be considered?
Include in our national level climate change policy.
can you please repeat your question? There was some voice distortion in the.
My question is that would you suggest some major like points which we should include in our national climate change policy, for addressing the water scarcity problem and issues in Pakistan?
There are still one document under process that is particularly for and that has been sent to me for review and some comments. That is a national water policy. So there are different set of measures. Obviously, I have not been through the national climate change policy, the recent document, but they should be clear. What I perceive is there should be a clear focus, should be more on the adaptation side of climate change rather than on the mitigation side. So we need to take more adaptive measures as an answer to the climate change rather than to focus on mitigation. Adaptations are, buildings of small dams, structures, reservoirs, conservation of water, resilient agriculture, for instance, all those things. So all these measures should be included in the, in climate change policy. Particularly groundwater is the most important because people have, something very wrong assumption about that groundwater is safe to use if we dug the deep well, so it's safe. No, it's not like that. Our surface water is is of very good quality if it requires a very little treatment, and that can be used. So groundwater usage should be minimized. People should be discouraged to use minimum amount of groundwater. Let me share my own experience of my PhD research when I was at Columbia University, New York. We have interviewed like 400 arsenic, deposited patient, or you can other say they're suffering from cancer. So would you believe out of those 400 patients, 340 people belongs to the tribal area of the United States where they don't have a public managed water supply system. So in all the countries, if you visit like US or UK, where they have a public managed water supply system, they have very less diseases. They are not exposed to the small. They live a healthy life. Waterborne diseases are very rare. Viral infections are there, but in those area in which the people depends on the groundwater, they have lot of problems. Like for example, I will quote the example of arsenic, which is a carcinogen and which can cause cancer after the use of like 7 or 8 or maybe 10 years after you become it. So people are unaware of that. So in any case, the policy should be more focused on the public's water supply for drinking purposes, and then obviously on water conservation, management of surface water resources, management of quality of water, and all those things. There are so many things. So I'm sure that there will be that will be the priority in that climate change policy, rather than to focus more on you can say like a reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases, which is also good. It has some benefit, like for example, we have a clean energy, and our health problems like due to the contaminants in the air, that will be reduced. But simply priority should be given to the adaptation side. That's the main point.
Any other questions? Floor is open. Well, if there is no other questions, then I will close this session with thank you to Dr. Asif Javed for honoring us with his time and his knowledge and this presentation today. And we look forward to seeing him in the coming series as well by joining in, sharing his knowledge with us, and we'll hopefully continue this for the future as well. And if you have any questions, you can contact Dr. Asif through me, and we can ask anything later on. Thank you, Dr. Asif.
Thank you, Dr. Saad, also, and thank you to the National Center of Geology, especially for giving me an opportunity to talk to you people and others in that center.
Thank you. We look forward to it in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye to all the online participants and physical participants. Thank you for coming. Allah Hafiz.